to ask that. How about, what are your short and long-term goals?
Yes.
Absolutely. With whom do you live?
Okay.
Okay, so this one, as I mentioned to you, we do ask on our application if you have any relatives who work there. So, and I explained that because we allow relatives to work, remember how I was saying? And in certain departments, we have allowed so many that it's very difficult for that manager to replace people, right, when somebody's ill. So I would venture to say, if you're asking, you're asking because you're allowing relatives to work there, and for scheduling purposes, you need to be aware of that. It's not implying that you need to know if there's a potential conflict for scheduling.
Well, couldn't you ask whether there are any relatives, do you have any relatives that are already employed here?
Yeah, that's exactly.
As opposed to asking who you live with.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct. Yeah, so there's another way of getting to that. Yeah. Number 5, with whom do you live? Okay, if married, or are you expecting to have children? Definitely a no. Why are you interested in this organization? Sure. Tell me about yourself. Absolutely. What does your spouse do? No. I mean, again, lots of times people offer information if they're talking to you about something, but you cannot say, what does your spouse do?
They already said they were married, you couldn't ask them if they were
Well, not if it's not directly related to, or not even if they offer, oh, my husband's an engineer. Oh, where does he work? So, they would be guiding that conversation, if you will. Where were your parents? Were your parents born in this country? No. What education have you completed?
Yes.
Yeah. How old are you?
No.
No. Are you legally old enough to work?
Yes.
Yes. If you have someone coming that's, they look like they might be 15 or so, and you may not hire someone who's 15. How did you learn about this job?
Yes.
Absolutely. Have you ever filed bankruptcy? No. I did mention to you, however, if you were hiring an accountant, a CFO, and you would have to let them know up front, you probably want to look into their credit, that information a little bit. You would have them sign off and approve that. If someone's dealing with the money situation of your organization, it's part of the...
No, I was going to ask you, like, what if they're paying for
What if they're
a payee?
a payee?
Right,
Well, if they're on your payroll, they're getting paid from, it's not a contract or a 1099, then you could potentially, you're not going to arbitrarily decide, oh, I'm going to ask you for your credit history, you can't, you would have to say, as the CFO, it's something that we require. And again, it's usually those that are directly involved with the money and that have the potential to take large quantities of money from the organization. Okay, who are the people prepared to write or give references for you? Yeah, you need to know. Oftentimes you have that on a resume, the last part, references. You might even bring letters with you. People have done that. People have had written references. Where do you bank? No, definitely not. What is your social security number?
Yes.
Well, you're going to need that if you're looking, at moving forward to hire, right? And I don't think we talked about the I-9, so I have some information on that.
Are you connected during the interview?
Well, I don't know if I would ask that during the interview. Now, Art, I don't know. We have the person fill out the application first, and then they're in the interview. So technically speaking, why would you verbalize that during the interview? Do you have that information somewhere based on the application? Yes. But yeah, you're not going to, why would you need to know that?
Oh, I thought these were just questions that either.
Well, it's saying, can you ask that question? It doesn't really say it's not saying during an interview format. So it's best that you talk it through, right? So is that information in your application? Yes. Okay. What special qualifications do you have for the job? Absolutely. How many children do you have? No, you're not going to ask that, and you're not going to have that on the application. Have you ever been arrested?
Yes.
Well, you want to know about convictions, not arrest. Be really careful with that, because there are plenty, not plenty, but there are times when somebody may have been arrested and they were never convicted. So you want to know about convictions. And remember the misdemeanors, it has to be, okay, so that's, I would say that probably is something they may ask you on your actual testing. Well, there's I don't know if I wrote the whole list with me, but in that information that I shared last week, if you go online onto that abuse, I would, I would definitely say to all of you, if you can sit at a computer, if you have access, and to take that, because I found it extremely helpful. Abuse and, yes, it came from here, it came from this site. Remember we practiced, we actually did the one, there's 4 sections to it. Abuse, it's from the older protective. There, right here. Online training, okay, for mandatory abuse reporting. I would recommend getting that. God bless you, because there's 4 sections and it gets into really specifics. Did I need it, all aspects of it? Here we go. Any 1 felony or 2 misdemeanors, and it gives you, okay? So I would have, have a working knowledge of those types of things, but you are not asking about arrest, okay? But that's a really good tool for folks to go back and to do. Can you provide information on criminal convictions?
Yes.
Yes. And again, that's where we talked about, we had a nurse who, at the age of 19, she was petty theft, and she was 40 years old, and, she had, so we weren't going to hold that against her, right? If she had, one of these major areas, then obviously we wouldn't have allowed it. Anything to do with drugs, obviously, drugs running or, possession of drugs. Do you want a nurse, being around medication? They had an arrest with drugs? Okay, so you kind of need to think those things through a little.
What about,
Fraud? Fraud comes down to me an ethical and integrity type of thing.
including the person?
So we would probably not in our facility if it was something fraudulent, right? If you have, again, a clinical person, yeah. You want to think some of them through, I don't want to tell you that's where, good morning. May I answer any questions about the job or organization? Absolutely. You want to give them opportunity to talk to you and ask you things. What kinds of daycare arrangements have you made for your children? No, absolutely not. That's, again. What are your greatest strengths and weaknesses?
Yes.
Yes. What memberships do you hold in social, religious, and community groups? You can. You can ask them about, and a lot of times you'll see people who add that to their applications too, or I'm sorry, to their resumes. I belong to American Society for Training and Development. That is an membership I belong to. They might say, oh, what kind of information do you get from there? How does that help you in your career? So you don't want to say it in a discriminatory way if someone's telling you, a certain organization that they belong to, right? You cannot use it to judge discriminatory-wise, but if somebody has that reference to that, you could definitely elaborate on that.
I thought that asked something that relates to their religious beliefs.
Yes. if it's on, or if you just want to ask, that's different. You're not going to ask them, what religion do you practice? That's the difference. Right? Okay. Have you ever been hospitalized, and if so, for what condition? No, and we'll get to the last question and I'll kind of comment on it. That's an unusual name, where is it from?
No.
I mean, yeah, I mean, who's gonna say that, right? Well, although people do, some people might do that out of curiosity, but think about the implications of how it could potentially be discriminatory, right? If you're then saying, okay, they're from Iraq or Iran, right? I mean, that's discriminatory. Have you ever been treated for a medical condition? And lastly, are you taking any prescribed drugs? So in our facility, we have an occupational health. We do the background information on site. We have a nurse. And she does work through some of these things. You know, she'll ask her, are you on any medications? We're doing a pre-drug screening. So if somebody, you know, we talked about that the last time, if someone's taking a particular drug, she will know that, right? And that information is important to know from an occupational health perspective. It doesn't mean everybody else needs to know about it. So during, and you know, this doesn't really tell you whether you're asking it in an interview or you asking it, you know, for pre-testing purposes as your, you know, occupational health is doing the physical and whatnot. But that's, you want to just keep that in mind. And I don't know, do you know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, and I think you had mentioned last week that you actually had it on an application, which I have not seen that, and we have never practiced that. So that seemed a little odd that it would be on an application. That was given, like, after, once they offered you the job? Because we would ask that after we offered, right? So we say, we'd like to offer you this position contingent on you passing our drug, right? Exactly, you know, so there, you know, there are certain things, and passing the criminal background, you know, you always want to use that word, contingent on. So my,
You know, whenever
maybe
you
it
talk about
couldn't,
it could have been after, but
Yeah.
I know it was on it,
Yeah.
something else.
sure, and it was probably for your physical information. And I like to say to folks, that's, you know, that's important to know. So I wanted to just share this with you folks, because I just thought this was, okay. So there's lots of things that we can get in HR, you know, HR law. And you don't, most of these things they'll send you for free for a few times, and then of course they want you to buy it. But HR specialist, but there was one in here, because we were referencing this last week, if you will. Can you be sued for somebody who is commuting and leaves your work site and they're in an accident?
Leaving your work site?
You are, okay, well, let me give you the scenario, and you tell me, I won't give you the outcome. Don't let employees who feel ill or impaired in any way drive home work. Reason, you could be found liable for an accident that they caused. An important court ruling throws out the conventional wisdom that says companies aren't liable for employees' actions during their typical commute. This ruling says that if an employee can show the job contributed to the accident, your company can be liable. And here's the scenario. The day after a company sprayed its factory for bugs, an employee complained that she felt ill at work. So do people do things at work all the time, you know? I mean, there might be different things going on, and they're treating or even doing construction work, you know, somebody might be asthmatic, or, you know, there's a zillion things that could happen. A supervisor offered to send her to the company doctor, but she declined. While driving home, she rear-ended another car. She told police she felt lightheaded before the accident. The person in the other car sued the company for her injuries. An appeals court let the case go to trial. Okay? Companies are usually liable for injuries caused by employees only when the employee is acting within the course of employment, but an exemption exists. If the company could have foreseen a potential risk and didn't stop it, it could be held liable for the resulting injuries. Bottom line, pay attention to any illness or injury complaints that could be related to work. In this case, she said, right after the sprain that affected her.
He offered her to go to the
Yes, he did. Be proactive, provide transportation to medical care or home. Do the same in other cases in which driving might be impaired, such as after late night work or where alcohol has been served. The cab fare will be a bargain next to defending a lawsuit. So, again, they actually don't really tell you here. The company could have foreseen. I mean, they offered to send her, but I don't think they were really specific about getting her there.
That's what I
So,
was going to say.
yeah.
And being proactive.
Yeah.
That means, other alternatives besides just asking her, saying maybe I'll take you, or I'll call
That's
somebody
right.
when you're going to meet with
That's
them.
right.
Or taking the extra step.
Yep, taking the extra step.
She declined or she refused.
Yeah, and then you want to document that.
Yeah, I was gonna say, the biggest thing would be documenting that you offered it, they refused, and I would even have the person sign off.
Absolutely,
They
yeah,
chose not to get help.
absolutely. And that goes back to when somebody even has like a minor injury on the work site, what do we always say? Fill out an incident report, fill out an incident report, because you don't know what's gonna happen a week later, a month later, sometimes years, right? And it's important that, and then, you know, it's important that a manager also sign off on that incident report, so everyone's aware of what's going on, you know, was it faulty equipment that the person was using, so there's the whole ripple effect of that.
What if somebody goes to the hospital? So, should be used?
Well, why would they have gone to the hospital? In this case, if this person,
Oh, no. In a different scenario, like one of the patients or somebody that live in the facility go to the hospital.
oh, one of the residents
One of the residents.
are transferred to the hospital. Okay, so what about them? They're,
They
would
need
they-
an incident report too, just because.
oh, yeah, I mean, you're doing, yeah, if there's a fall or an accident with the resident, absolutely. I'm sure that was probably under your resident rights and abuse, right? That's, yeah. Yeah, you're doing an incident report for that as well, yeah. Yep. Okay, so again, they're not really clear here, like where you're getting that information from, but relatively speaking, you know, you're not gonna ask anything that could potentially be discriminatory. Okay, alrighty, so, one of the things I wanted to share today is, you know, there are times when you're gonna have conversations, whether it's around performance improvement, or conflict resolution, or things that, everyday conversations that you have with your peers have with each other, supervisors, and knowing how to handle them, and to handle them in a way that's removing your emotions, right? Because we all have buttons that get pushed for certain things, right? As soon as maybe someone says a certain thing, we immediately, you know, go to either shut off mode, or some of us get defensive, right? And then you can't even hear what the person's saying after that. This book is called Crucial Conversation: Tools for Talking When the Stakes Are High. And it's forwarded by Stephen Covey, everyone knows, right?
Yes.
Stephen Covey, authors of the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. So we utilize this at our workplace for managers, and then we drill it down to frontline staff, and we really have incorporated it into the way that we have conversations with people when stakes are high. And when we say when stakes are high, it doesn't mean it has to be like the president level. Stakes are high every day with people's conversations, you know, really being aware of them. So it also comes in audio. So we're going to spend about a half an hour listening to the first 5 chapters of this, so you can get a sense of what the book's about. Is something that I highly recommend. They also have available, and we're going to do that afterwards, a way for you to be able to decide your learning style under stress. What do you typically do, right? So once you become aware of these things, it does make it a little bit, not so much easier, but then you know your plan of action of how to improve on that. I mean, I know for me, I usually go to silence. If I feel like I'm being threatened, some people will talk more because but knowing that I think is helpful. So we're gonna take, I think it's like 30, 35 minutes. We're gonna listen to the first 5 chapters and, you can jot down information and then we're gonna try this quiz here and see where everybody ends up, okay? Yes.
Can you give the title one more time?
Sure. Crucial conversation. I need copies of the first. I have one, but I'm going to need more. I can pass this around, and then, folks can, I'm sorry, I thought I made more than that. So, Andrea, do I need to push anything up here to get this down? I'm sure I do. Or is that from up here then? Yep, it's in. Is this from the actual CD or? Yes, there is. Oh. Let's see. Let's see if someone else. That's a good sign.
McGraw-Hill Audio presents Crucial Conversations, Tools for Talking When Stakes Are High. Written by Carrie Patterson, Joseph Rennie, Ron McMillan, and Alice
Is
Switzer.
that loud enough?
Read by Anna Fields.
I don't think
Well, she's the audio.
It's audio. Yeah, yeah. I just didn't know.
This is a breakthrough book. That is exactly how I saw it when I first read the manuscript. It so resonated with the importance, power, and timeliness of its message that I even suggested to the authors that they title it Breakthrough. But as I read deeper, listened to the tapes, and experienced the insight born of years of experience with this material, I came to understand why it is titled Crucial Conversations. From my own work with organizations, including fandoms, and from my own experience, I have come to see that there are a few defining moments in our lives and careers that make all the difference. Many of these defining moments come from crucial or breakthrough conversations with important people in emotionally charged situations where the decisions made take us down one of several roads, each of which leads to an entirely different destination. I can see the wisdom in the assertion of the great historian Arnold Toynbee, who said that you can pretty well summarize all of history, not only of society, but of institutions and of people, in 4 words. Nothing fails like success. In other words, when a challenge in life is met by a response that is equal to it, you have success. But when the challenge moves to a higher level, the old, once successful response no longer works. It fails. Thus, nothing fails like success. The challenge has noticeably changed for our lives, our families, and our organizations. Just as the world is changing at frightening speed and has become increasingly and profoundly interdependent with marvelous and dangerous technologies, so too have the stresses and pressures we all experience exponentially increased. This charged atmosphere makes it all the more imperative that we nourish our relationships and develop tools, skills, and enhanced capacity to find new and better solutions to our problems. These new or better solutions will not represent my way or your way. They will represent ours. In short, the solutions must be synergistic, meaning that the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. Such synergy may manifest itself in a better decision, a better relationship, a better decision-making process, increased commitment to implement decisions made, or a combination of two or more of these. What you learn is that crucial conversations transform people and relationships. They are anything but transactive. They create an entirely new level of bonding. They produce what Buddhism calls the middle way. Not a compromise between two opposites on a straight line continuum, but a higher middle way, like the apex of a triangle. Because two or more people have created something new from genuine dialogue, bonding takes place. Just like the bonding that takes place in family or marriage when a new child is created. When you produce something with another person that is truly creative, it's one of the most powerful forms of bonding there is. In fact, the bonding is so strong that you simply would not be disloyal in his or her absence, even if there were social pressure to join others in bad-mouthing. The sequential development of the subject matter in this book is brilliant. It moves you from understanding the supernal power of dialogue to clarifying what you really want to have happen and focusing on what actually is happening, to creating conditions of safety, to using self-awareness and self-knowledge. And finally, it moves you to learning how to achieve such a level of mutual understanding and creative synergy that people are emotionally connected to the conclusions reached and are emotionally willing and committed to effectively implementing. In short, you move from creating the right mind and heart set to developing and utilizing the right skill set. In spite of the fact that I have spent many years writing and teaching similar ideas, I found myself being deeply influenced, motivated, and even inspired by this material. Learning new ideas, going deeper into old ideas, seeing new applications, and broadening my understanding. I've also learned how these new techniques, skills, and tools work together in enabling crucial conversations that truly create a break with the mediocrity or mistakes of the past. Most breakthroughs in life truly are great wits. When I first put my hands on this book, I was delighted to see that dear friends and colleagues had drawn on their entire lives and professional experiences to not only address a tremendously important topic, but also to do it in a way that is so accessible, so fun, so full of humor and illustration, so full of common sense and practicality. They show how to effectively blend and use both intellectual, IQ, and emotional intelligence, EQ, to enable crucial conversation. I remember one of the authors having a crucial conversation with his professor in college. The professor felt that this student was neither paying the price in class nor living up to his potential. This student, my friend, listened carefully, restated the professor's concern, expressed appreciation for the professor's affirmation of his potential, and then smilingly and calmly said, "My focus is on other priorities, and the class is just not that important to me at this time. I hope you can understand." The teacher was taken aback, but then started to listen. A dialogue took place, new understanding was achieved, and the bonding was deepened. I know these authors to be outstanding and remarkable teachers and writers, and have even seen the work their magazines in. But I didn't know if they could take this complex topic and fit it into a book. They did. I encourage you to really dig into this material, to pause and think deeply about each part and how the parts are sequenced. Then apply what you've learned. Go back to the book again, learn some more, and apply your new learnings. Remember, to know and not to do is really not to know. Chapter 1. What's a crucial conversation, and who cares? When people first first hear the term crucial conversation, many conjure up images of presidents, emperors, and prime ministers seated around a massive table while they debate the future of the world. Although it is true that such discussions have a wide, sweeping, and lasting impact, they're not the kind we have in mind. The crucial conversations we're referring to in the title of this book are interactions that happen to everyone. They're the day-to-day conversations that affect your life. Now, what makes one of your conversations crucial as opposed to plain vanilla? First, opinions vary. For example,